In the Customizing the Basic Bootstrap NavBar Part 1 video, we took the basic Bootstrap NavBar and wrote some custom CSS rules to turn the background to this dark brown color. We also wrote some custom CSS so that the text would be this light tan color, and that when we mouse over a link, the background turns to this lighter brown. If you're not sure how to create these kinds of effects for the basic Bootstrap NavBar, please go back and watch the first video before you continue on with this one. Our navbar looks pretty good in a big browser window like this. But when we grab the right side of the browser window, click and drag to the left to get a different screen size, we reach a point where our navigation links disappear and they're replaced with this little toggle icon. Sometimes we call it a hamburger navigation icon because it has a top bun, a piece of meat, and then a bottom bun. We all know what to do with that icon when we see it. We click on it and that expands a menu. We use this type of navigation anytime space is at a premium and we want to make sure that our content is remaining the focal point of our site. The basic Bootstrap navbar is designed so that it switches to that toggle mode when it gets to a certain smaller screen size. That makes it work great on a smartphone or a tablet, but it also comes in handy on desktops and laptops when someone shrinks the size of their browser window. Right now in our toggle menu, everything is aligned in the center because of rules that we put in place in the Part 1 video. What I want to do for this menu is align all of my links to the left. I'm also going to style it so that the whole row a link is on has the background color change instead of just that block of color that's around it. That block of color is being set right now by that 100 pixel width we assigned in the first video. I'm also going to change this blue border around the toggle icon so that we have a color that fits better with our color scheme. Here in Dreamweaver, I'm just going to grab this handle and drag my window over until we see that navigation change to the toggle menu. There it is. And if we look up in this bar called the Visual Media Query bar, we can see the width is 991.98 pixels. The Visual Media Query bar is used to help create media queries. Media queries allow us to tell the browser to check for certain characteristics, and if those characteristics are present, then to apply a certain set of CSS rules. I'm going to click over to Split View for a minute to show you the Bootstrap CSS. Remember, this is the one we never make edits to. These lines that begin with the red @media are media queries that are built into the Bootstrap CSS. They're telling the browser to check for specific things. In this case, a minimum width of 576 pixels. If that exists, apply the rules that follow. What this allows us to do is then to write rules that work for specific screen sizes. So the browser sees these media queries, and if I'm on a smartphone, it says, oh, these are the rules that should apply. This is how I should display the navigation and the other content. We can use media queries to check for other things too, like the orientation of someone's smartphone or tablet. If it's horizontal, apply these rules. If it's vertical, apply these rules. So media queries allow designers to essentially design their websites to be responsive, controlling how they look at different screen sizes to ensure that their users are going to have the kind of experience on the site that they want them to have. We're not going to look at all these rules that are built into the Bootstrap CSS, but just from what you can see on the screen right now, you can start to understand how all those col-sm rules work. They're written inside media queries so that they're only activated styles when the user is looking at the site using a screen of a certain size or a browser window of a certain size. I'm going to expand this back over the screen size that we had earlier, so we'll be able to create our media query. Now we're ready to create our own media query. We're going to create a media query that's going to control how the site displays the navigation from essentially a width of 0 up to a maximum of 991.98 pixels. To do that, I'm going to click on this little plus button that's up here by the media query. That's going to bring the media query pop-up window open. And it says, hey, do you want to write a max width media query with that width set to 991 pixels? Well, I want that 0.98 in there just to be real specific. And then it says, where do you want to put this media query? We have options. We could have it defined right in the page. We could make a brand new CSS file for it, or we could just put it inside of our Coffee Styles CSS that we already have. That's what I'd like to do. So I'm going to just click OK, and then Dreamweaver generates the media query for me. I'm going to go to Split View, and then select my coffee style CSS. When I scroll to the very bottom, there's my media query. So at a maximum width of 991.98 pixels, apply the rules that we're going to write here. At media is technically considered a rule, even though it has this media query name that we often use with it. So you'll see that it also has some curly Q brackets. All of the rules that we write need to be inside of those curly Q brackets, so nested within this particular media query. If we wanted to, we could add our rules to the media query using the CSS Designer in Live View, but let's stick with Code View. All right, so I'm going to type our first rule. It's going to be called nav-custom. This one should look familiar from the first video. Here I'm just going to change my property to display and add the value of block. And that's going to allow my navigation, I have a little typo. Get rid of that extra B. That's going to allow my navigation to go over to the side. That looks good, but it's almost like they're still in those blocks, right? And they're centered in them. So I'm going to make this other rule, nav-custom. I'm going to target the li and a elements. And I'm going to use the text align property and the left value. And that sends everything right over to the left. Now I have a weird problem where they're too tight to the left. So another rule, nav-custom. I'm going to target lia again. But this time, A when it's in the link state, and then also when it's in the visited state. And then for my property, I'm going to do padding left. And for my value, I'm going to do, let's try 20 pixels. There we go. Now we have a little bit more breathing room between the edge of the navigation and the actual links, the text links. So our next task is to change it so that when we hover over the link, the entire background color for the row changes. Right now, we're just getting the little block that's around the word. So I'm going to go into my nav custom lia rule and add another property and value pair with an auto setting here for the value. And now, when I mouse over, the whole row lights up. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do a quick save all, look at it in the browser. It's working just like it should. Now the only thing we have left to do is adjust this toggle icon. We still have the black lines and that blue box around it. So back over in Dreamweaver, I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. So I'm going to go to my NavBar and click on that toggle icon and look and see what classes are applied. I'm going to go over to my CSS Designer, click on that, and make sure current is selected. Then take a look at what is actually influencing the styling of that bar. And it looks like the culprit is right here, this NavBar light, NavBar toggle icon. So I'm going to right click on that and go to code. That's going to take me right to the rule in the Bootstrap CSS file. I'm going to highlight it and copy it. And then I'm going to go to my coffee styles file and paste it in. Take a look. I'm looking for where they have a color, and here it is. They have it styled using the RGBA technique, which we haven't really talked too much about, but it's not hard to deal with. In fact, if I go up to the part of my CSS where I have all those colors, I actually brought one over because I knew I was going to need it. So I'm just going to copy those numbers, scroll back down, paste them in there for a reference, and then type them in over the numbers that are currently in the rule. So 74 and the 53. That last number is an opacity number that I'm just going to leave there. Delete my reference numbers because I don't need them, and give this a shot. Yep, now I've got some nice light brown lines showing up. Okay, now to tackle that blue line. I'm going to click on the toggle icon again, and then get the element display and arrow up so I have the button selected, and take a look at what's going on here. I've got this .btn class. Over here in the CSS Designer, I can see that btn class has some other rules going on. And one that I'm really interested in is this .btn :focus, this multiple focus one here. That's because that's a link state, and we see that blue border coming up when we click on the actual toggle icon. That's the focus state. So I'm going to right click and go to that code and copy and paste it out of Bootstrap and into my CSS so I can make an edit to the color. All right, I'm going to paste it into my CSS file and then make a change to the color. So this is another CSS that's using that RGBA approach. There's the colors. I'm just going to copy the ones from the rule above that we modified earlier and paste them in here. I'm happy with those colors. I'll leave outline set to 0, and then I'm going to do a quick file save all and preview this in the browser and see how it looks. Here we are in the browser. I'm going to refresh real quick, click on it, and there we go. Nice brown line around the toggle icon with the brown lines through it, and everything is behaving just as it should. I hope you found this video helpful and that you're well on your way to getting your Bootstrap basic navbar styled just the way you want it.